What's up guys, Kyle here again, and welcome back to another episode of FAQ'N Friday. Extreme Close-Up Edition! Just kidding, no one wants to be that close to my face. Hope that you guys all had a wonderful holiday with your families yesterday while everybody's recovering from a food coma. Let's answer some questions. Question number one comes from Steven, or Stefan, because you still haven't corrected me yet, so we're gonna go with Stefan, because that sounds real churchy. Would love to see some budget recommendations for us poors who don't have a warehouse full of awesome amps and cabs. Like what head and cab combo under $1,000 would you choose? So I actually think that I am going to do a video based on this topic sometime in the near future here. Unfortunately, right now I'm kind of relegated to pumping out a million amp demos, which you guys seem to be loving because they're getting tons of views. So I hope that those are helpful to you guys. For the foreseeable future, I have recorded a ton of amp demos recently as I have to get rid of a bunch of stuff here. And we're gonna be seeing those all the way up until probably the middle of December, possibly later. But one of my ideas for different content was to provide you guys a kind of buyer's guide or even a video showcasing a couple of what most people would consider budget rigs. And in that video, I'm just gonna take a well-priced head and a well-priced cab, pair it together, give you guys some recommendations and even some tone samples. And we can limit it at $1,000. We can limit it at whatever. Why don't we actually, you guys put it down in the comments. What would you like to see the price tag or the price limit be on my recommended budget rigs video? Because $1,000 can get you a lot. There's a lot of stuff in that range, but if you need to tighten the budget even more so, what do you guys think a realistic number would be? Because $1,000 to some people may seem like nothing, and $1,000 to some other people may seem way above their budget. So maybe for the video, I'll just do a couple different tiers. You guys let me know what type of price tiers or price limits you would like to see for that video. But quickly off the top of my head, I feel like I've done this question on an FAQ episode before, but anything for an amp and cab under $1,000, the amps are always going to be a Jet City JCA 50 or 100H because those can be had $300 to $400. They sound incredible. Based off a Soldano hot rod, and I have a Soldano hot rod. I have an SLO, I have an Avenger, all in my possession right now. And guess what? The Jet City hangs. It's kind of insane how well it hangs. So you're talking a $400 amp versus amps that cost between $2,000 and $3,000 on the used market. Jet City's kind of a no-brainer. Another one of my favorite recommendations would be the PV Ultra 60 or 120. Those amps still seem to sell between $300 and $400 pretty frequently. They sound incredible. One of the few amps that I could honestly say that I do not need a boost with because the ultra gain on those amps is so incredibly tight that you really don't need a boost, and it's so saturated that it kind of feels like you're playing a boosted amp. So that's a nice one because it encompasses the boost if you're not looking to buy an external pedal in the ultra gain setting. And it sounds great. It's the precursor amp to the Ultra Plus, the Triple X, the JSX. So it's just an early part of the lineage of the PV Ultra amps, and they sound really good. Now the problem with those amps is they're kind of hard to find. They don't pop up all that often, so some of these amps are not going to be the easiest to track down. The 50 watt Jet City amps, I believe, all except for the Amelia, are no longer in production, so you're going to have to find them on the used market. I recently demoed a couple of the Bugera amps, and they sound great, but they have reliability issues. Of course, a PV Triple X or 6505 are always going to be at the top of my list. That just leaves you less for a cab, but cabs usually are the cheaper part of the equation anyways. And as far as budget cabs that I can recommend, the PV 412 MS with the old grill, they're the old ugly ones with the giant corner pieces and the concrete Tolex. That stuff will cut you if you touch it wrong. They weigh a ton. They come with the old Celestion G12K85 speakers. I haven't even eaten Thanksgiving dinner yet, which are essentially the UK version of the G12K100. They just relabeled it the K100 because they realized that the power rating on the speaker was actually higher than they originally rated it at. So that's a great option. There are some awesome Carvin cabs that have V30s in them. There are some awesome Ampeg cabs that have V30s in them. The Marshall Mode 4 cabs are great cabs on a decent budget. The prices on those have come up over the recent years. But again, you could, if you go with a cheaper head, you could score one of the Marshall Mode 4 cabs for probably $400 or $500 and be good to go. They're really still, even though the prices on everything in this market have kind of gone through the roof on most things, there are still some great budget options. And I think honestly, in an upcoming show, one of the bands that I play guitar in, probably not Bushido Code because we take our gear really seriously, but maybe Represent or something. If we ever get out there and play a show again, I'm almost gonna try to construct a rig out of all the cheapest or the most budget-friendly gear that I have, just for fun. because even though I do like playing my high-end gear, I think it's really cool to take out amps and cabs that are kind of sleepers and people probably see them and kind of scoff at them when you bring them on the stage and then, oh, that sounds really good. I know that's happened to me before, and that happened to me with a Crate Blue Voodoo. Somebody played a Blue Voodoo and I was like, oh, this is gonna be rough, and then they made it sound incredible. So I always like being proven wrong, and I like kind of showing people that you don't have to have that top end gear in order to get really good tones. So great question, man. I appreciate you always leaving questions on the FAQ videos, and the budget gear topic is something near and dear to my heart. So yeah, let me know on the pricing structures you guys would like to see on that video down in the comments. Thank you so much. Joe Roche asks, have you done a review of the Engel Fireball 100? Engel. I have not actually, but Engel Amps, Trey Xavier from Gear Gods actually hooked me up with Jürgen of Engel Amps, and they are supposed to send me a couple amps to demo on the channel sometime here in the near future. So thanks to Trey and thanks to Jürgen. Jürgen was actually super nice and gracious, great guy to talk to. And I think it's really cool. He actually already had me on his radar, which still blows my mind that companies already are recognizing this channel. So he asked me kind of what I would want to see. He didn't even say, well, here's our new stuff. Well, I want to get you the new stuff. He's like, what do you want? So one of the amps that I actually recommended or requested from him, because you guys do ask me about that amp all the time, is the Engel Fireball 100. So at some point within the next couple of months, I'm guessing Engel will send me that, as well as possibly the Fireball 25, because he mentioned that, and the Iron Ball SE. So we'll see whatever we work out, but I'm really excited for that opportunity. I haven't got the chance to play a lot of Engel amps, and honestly, every amp that I've played from Engel, except for the Fireball 100, has been their older stuff, and I know that they've tweaked a lot of their designs, especially in their updated amps like the Powerball 2, the Savage 2. I know the Fireball 100 is technically a redesigned version of the Fireball 60, so that's kind of one of their newer ones. And on their newer amps, they've lessened the compression, they've lessened the extreme amounts of gain that are in them, and that was kind of always my issue with the Engel amps that I'd played. I played the Blackmore, I owned a Powerball 1. I feel like there was another one that I played, a special edition or something, like one of the Artist. I can't remember, there was another, I owned a Retro Tube too. I completely forgot. The Retro Tube actually was a great sounding amp. I really liked the mid voicing of that amp and the gain structure of that amp, but the low end was just kind of, it had no punch to it. It was, when you dial it up, it would be kind of boomy and kind of tubby, and when you would try to dial it down to try to tighten it up a little bit, it just kind of disappeared. So I could never get the low end to react the way that I wanted on that amp. That was a bummer, because overall I really liked the tone of that amp. And Engel, I don't know if you have any newer circuits based off the Retro Tube 100, but that was probably my favorite tonally, my favorite Engel to date. It just needed that low end tightened up a little bit, so it gave more of a punch and less of a woomph. There it is. Do I not have the most punchable face? But anyways, yeah, Fireball 100. We will probably have that on the channel here soon. Thanks very much to Trey at Gear Gods and Jürgen at Engel. So thanks for your question, and thanks to those guys. Jack Florio asks, what is your favorite 2x12 cab you've played? What would you pair with a Deliverance 60, the Fryette Deliverance cab, or something else? Thank you for your question, Jack. I actually got this question a few months ago, and I did answer it, but I really didn't have much insight, because at the time, I didn't really own any 212 cabs. So now, of course, I went full belligerent amateur, and I have like 8 212 cabs. A couple of them I've literally gotten for free out of some of the trades that I've done and stuff like that in my gear adventures. But I've got to say, the Mesa 212 is still probably the one that I gravitate towards the most, and that's because the mids just seem the most forward in that one. And for an amp like the Deliverance, I would say that's something you're gonna want, because the Deliverance is not a super mid-forward amp to begin with. So you're gonna want something that is going to push those mids out there a little bit more for you. The orange cabs are super mid-forward because of the grill cloth that they have on them. They round all the high end off, and then the cab is built to a bigger specification, so that even more so makes them darker, and it just really makes them sound very mid-forward and boxy. I mean, honestly, I'm if you guys like the orange 412 stuff, that's fine. I'm not bagging on them and saying they're bad, because they're well-built cabs, but personally, it's just too much mids, and you guys know I like my mids, so it could honestly sound good with the D60. I haven't tried it personally yet, but I would say the Mesa is a great one to use if you need something to push those mids forwards a little bit more. Mids forwards? The Friedman cab sounds massive, by the way. That Friedman 212, I've put it up for sale, kind of testing the waters, but I really think I'm just gonna end up hanging on to it. But that cab, it has a little port in the back of it on the bottom, which is supposed to increase the low end response of the cab. It definitely does that. It is a very big sounding 212 cab, especially because it's not really oversized or anything. So that one sounds great, but I just haven't spent a lot of time playing it in order to see what amps and stuff that it works out the best with. So can't really recommend it for anything in particular, but that cab does sound great. The unfortunate thing is Friedman cabs, even on the used market, are very expensive. So expect to pay $600-700 for a used Friedman 212. Whereas you could go get a couple used avatars for probably like $500-600 and have two different 212s. All right, guys, last question of the day comes from Braden Baker, and he says, are there any particular pieces of gear that get a lot of praise that you just don't get along with? Thank you for your question. And again, I feel like I've answered something similar to this, but I've got a lot of new people on my channel before, and I think that you're a newer subscriber too, so thanks for being here, man. I try to pay attention to that stuff, people who repeat questions and comments on my videos. I appreciate you guys who keep coming back. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a real quick note, I am pushing for 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Right now I am at 6,800, so we got to get 1,200 in just 5 weeks. I think it's a really tough task, as I normally get about 600 new subscribers every month, but let's push it, man. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please hit that like and subscribe button. It would help me greatly. I would appreciate it so much. This channel has grown faster than I could have ever imagined, and I appreciate every single one of you guys who's out there supporting me, sharing the videos and telling people about my stuff. Anything that you guys are doing, really appreciate it. Off topic, as usual. If you can't tell, I'm easily distracted. So really the main thing that I would probably say that for the longest time, it was the Mesa dual rectifiers, which is funny. I have one sitting right here. I always struggled with rectifiers up until maybe 8-10 months ago. And then all of a sudden, I finally feel like I kind of figured out how to play them, figured out how to dial them in. Guys, I'm gonna say this for the first time on my channel. I love rectifiers now. Yeah, that feels so weird to say, but seriously, I've got 2 of them in my possession. The Badlander doesn't really count, but I have a multi-watt dual rectifier, and I have a triple rectifier that was a 3-channel that sounded surprisingly awesome. And I actually had it just slightly modded with 1 meg gain pots and 100K resistors in the preamp section of channels 2 and 3. If you guys want to see a special video, it's the triple rectifier that I already did a video on, but I could make an updated video of the mods just so you guys can see. It's a little bit tighter now. The gain is a little bit more fluid. But yeah, I love rectifiers now. So that doesn't really count for this question anymore, does it? Things that other people love that I don't love. The Marshall 1960 cabs get a lot of love. I really don't like them that much, and I'll tell you why. I feel like they're poorly built, especially in comparison to cabinets like the Metzabarba that I've been playing recently that just floors me every time I play it. My Omega cab is like a piece of art. That thing's built like a tank. Mesa cabs are classic cabs that are overbuilt, sealed, super rigid. So there are a lot of cabs that I would absolutely prefer over the 1960 cabs, and especially because like almost every single one of those cabs, well really if you're buying a 1960 A or B cab, it's gonna have the T75 speakers in it. I do not like those speakers at all. I know I've got some buddies who really dig them. They're not for me. For the longest time at the Bushido Code practice spot at my bassist house, we had a pair of 1960 cabs there with the T75s, and every single time Derek and I, as soon as we would plug into them, we would just kind of look at each other because they would fart out as soon as you would start playing, because we're a thrash band, but we both like a punchy low end, and the Marshalls just, they don't seem to handle it well. I personally, you guys are gonna laugh, I own 5 of those 1960 cabs. I did not pay a dime for any of them. I got them all through big package deals where I would sell off everything and keep the cabs because I'm a cab hoarder. But I am slowly starting the process of changing the speakers out, and I'm also going to add more internal bracing to each one of those cabs, because the way that the baffle is attached on those Marshall cabs, it's called a floating baffle, where the baffle is attached to the front trim of the cabinet by screws only. So that allows some flex because their baffles are not like the thickest plywood. The plywood's not braced at all. It's just got your standard center post. And I just feel like those cabs just are kind of farty. They flex too much, and they just can't seem to handle the low end of like a Splawn amp. They can handle the low end of regular Marshalls just fine, But when I start playing amps that have a bigger bass response, like the rectifiers, like the 5150s, like the Splons have a huge low end. Even though I go in when I get any Marshall cab, and you guys should do this too, because Marshall's hardware is notorious for backing out, especially the speaker screws and the baffle screws. As soon as you get a used 1960 cab, I'd go in there and just check everything, make sure it's tight. I've had some where the speaker was literally starting to pull back from the baffle because the speaker screws were so loose, and it's just the type of hardware that they use. Probably gonna ruffle some feathers with these statements, but it is what it is, guys. I mean, if you guys like 1960 cabs, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying I don't personally care for them, and they're probably the most popular 412 cab out there. You see Marshall 1960 cabs everywhere. I mean, the Mesa 412 is probably the only one that gives it a run for its money in popularity, and even then, I just feel like I see the 1960 cabs all over the place. So I may even bring you guys in on a video of what I do. I'm probably gonna experiment with the bracing that I add, and probably to start, I may seal the baffle with like silicone, because a lot of people do that with caulking essentially, and that keeps the air from getting out of the baffle when it's flexing, when you're playing heavy palm mutes and stuff. Mesa 412 cabs, this guy right here, this one. Mesa 412 cabs are sealed airtight at the factory before they ship them out. So that's one of the things that keeps them tight. Even the oversized cabs, they're not boomy cabs. I have owned a bunch of them. None of them have ever sounded boomy to my ears, so I think that's just the internet talking without really having actually experienced the cabs for themselves. I don't find them boomy whatsoever. They're very tight, and that's because they're sealed airtight and they're braced and built very rigid. So I would seal the front baffle, and then my Mezzabarba cabinet has almost like a straight up and down, like a cross brace on the front panel, and that keeps the front baffle on this thing from flexing. And this cab is just so tight and punchy, yet full sounding. It sounds incredible. Honestly, this Mezzabarba cab has probably become one of my favorite cabs, and I think that front bracing has a lot to do with it, because it really just stiffens the cab up overall, allows for a tight, punchy bass without the cab being overwhelmed and flexing too much. So I'll make a video when I do that and show you guys basically what I'm doing inside the Marshall cab to kind of brace it and just make the cab more stout, more solid overall. So I would say that's probably my least liked piece of gear that most people tend to love, is a Marshall 1960 cab. But that is gonna do it for me today, guys. Excellent questions as always. I sure do love talking about gear. I'll tell you that much. I enjoy these episodes. I enjoyed the viewers' comments last week. What did you guys think of the viewers' comments? It seemed like it got a good amount of views and a good response from you guys, so I hope that you enjoy that too. Again, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. If you haven't subscribed, please help me in my push to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn that bell notification on so you don't miss my stupid, goofy face in any of the upcoming videos that I'm gonna have for you guys. For next week, make sure to drop your questions down in the comments as always, and I will do my absolute best to get to them. In the description of this video are my support links, like my Sweetwater affiliate link. If you guys are Christmas shopping this season and you plan on buying anything from Sweetwater, please do your boy a huge favor and click that link before you buy anything, because that'll help my family have a better Christmas. Now that I'm doing this thing full time, I'm no longer earning an income of any sort other than YouTube ad revenue and that Sweetwater affiliate link. So anything that you guys buy greatly helps me out, and I'll appreciate you forever. With that being said, Kyle here again. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.